In this video, I'm going to cover what's new in Copy Services Manager 6.2.5. The 6.2.5 release was announced on March 19th of 2019 and will EGA on March 22nd of 2019. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is a quick product overview, and then I'll jump into what's new. All right, so what is CSM? This may be familiar to some of you, especially those who have watched my previous videos. But CSM is a one-stop shop for your block storage replication. It's very easy to install, set up, and then easy to manage. It makes it easy for you to manage that replication, especially your more complex 2-site, 3-site, and now 4-site solutions. From a single pane of glass, you can manage across DS8000 to your Spectrum Virtualize or Spectrum Accelerate storage systems. And we provide a lot of monitoring capability for those as well. We can install on all the available platforms: Windows, Linux, AIX, even ZOS. And now, if you don't want to manage a standalone server, it's actually pre-installed in the DS8000 HMC. So it's out there. You just have to enable it, but it's pre-installed and can be upgraded quite easily, or with the microcode. We have some disaster recovery and high-availability solutions within it. We manage ZOS Hyperswap and support PowerHA Hyperswap, etc. And we have some practice solutions which allow customers to practice the way they would recover. So easily flash a consistent copy of the remote site and do any practice for DR that they need to do. And lastly, we have a lot of protection. So we have a lot of warning prompts, user roles, site awareness, dynamic images, etc., that help you ensure that you're doing what you want to do and that your environment is protected. All right, so here's a high-level overview of what's new in 6.2.5. Let you absorb that for a second, but we'll move on here. All right, the first one I'm going to talk about is allowing session operators to only view the sessions they can manage. So in the we have the session operator role. There's 4 different roles you can define for users. What is a session operator? An administrator can define someone as a session operator, and that session operator will get selected certain sessions that they can only manage. So what in the past, what would happen is the administrator would set the sessions that that person can manage, and they would be able to issue commands to those sessions. But what if they went and logged into the CSM? They would see all the other sessions. They just wouldn't be able to issue commands to them, or add copy sets, etc. They could view them just like a monitor would, but they had no authority for them. Well, we had some requests recently that in some of these environments, the session operator, they didn't want that session operator to be able to even see the sessions, right? So they wanted more secure. They wanted the session operator, if they couldn't manage a session, don't even show it to them. So that's what we did. So let me show you. So I'm logged into CSM admin here. You'll see that he's an administrator if I hover over the little icon. And on the server, you'll see that I have a ton of sessions defined. They're out there. That's what they look like. On the flip side, this is the same server, just logged in to a different user through a different browser. But this guy is an operator. In fact, let me go back here and show you that because I'm administrator, I can look at it. But this particular operator only has access to view the AKGM and MMGMP sessions. So if I go back to him, you can see that in that session overview panel, those are the only 2 sessions he can see. All those other sessions that we saw earlier under the CSM admin user, they're not visible. So there's nothing you can view, nothing you can see, nothing you can do for those particular sessions. All right, the next one I want to talk about is our facility class support for the CSM CLI running under ZOS. So what this is about is on ZOS there's a facility class that can be used that a lot of applications do use, where users are put in the facility class, and that facility class has authorization to run certain applications. This the issue comes in that in certain ZOS environments, or most ZOS environments, there are password rules. So passwords have to change on a regular basis. And when you're using CSM CLI, before this release, we required both the username and password to be specified either in the command line or in an encrypted file. So when the password rule kicked in, they had to change their password not only in the system itself, but they had to go to the CSM and make sure that they changed it there as well. Well, they didn't like that, especially with facility classes being out there for other ZOS applications. And so for 625, we enabled that. On the CSM CLI, you can specify a -SAF params, -SAF, that if the facility class you specify in a property file will get checked so that the currently logged in user into the OMVS shell, or the user specified by the BPX batch job, are validated against that facility class so that they no longer have to enter the password. So hopefully this helps speed things up, prevents them having to manage the password in multiple spots while still maintaining that security based off of facility classes. All right, the next one I want to talk about is removing practice relationships in practice sessions. Okay, what is this? Well, in our practice sessions, as I mentioned at the top of the video, we allow customers to issue a flash command which creates a consistent copy of the data at the remote site so that they can actually practice their DR while still maintaining DR capability. So we'll do the flash, restart the relationships, and now they can practice and make sure that they can IPL off that system and do what they need to do so they're ready in the event of a disaster. If you do that flash, you can specify certain options, and if you specify no copy on the relationship, the targets don't get updated with that, hardened with the data, unless a write comes into the source. And so it's possible that the relationship with the no copy option will remain out there for the life of the session. Well, enter in extend space sufficient volumes. A lot more customers are now using extend space sufficient volumes across their sessions, so that includes the H2 or H3 practice volume in our practice sessions. And so the recommendation is to set no copy on that setting, because if you don't set no copy and you do the full background copy, you're going to consume that backend space even though you may not want to. And so what we needed to do was allow customers to set no copy, do their flash, do their practice, but actually prevent that flash copy from staying out there forever and then eventually consuming all their backend space. So what we added in 625 is a new terminate command that terminates just that flash copy relationship within the session. So let me show you how that's done. Going back to my CSM admin install, now I have a global mirror practice session here. I'm going to drill into that, and you can see that I flashed from I2 to H2 earlier and at 10:37 or so. So I have a relationship out there. He's possibly consuming some backend space. I'm doing my practice test, IPL'd, everything's good. Gave the green light, and so now I want to free that up so I can prevent eating up backend space. So I come down to my commands. You'll now see that there's not only a terminate command, but a terminate H2 I2 command. So if I specify that, it's going to tell me I'm going to remove that relationship. Now the important thing to note is once you do that, because you had no copy set and all that, the data is not hardened on H2, and so that H2 volume, those volumes will no longer be consistent. So do not do this if you want what can be called a golden copy, or a protected copy out there in that secondary site in the event of a disaster. Only do this if you know for sure you don't want that relationship anymore and you want to clean things up. So I'm going to issue the terminate. He goes out there, removes those I2 H2 relationships. And now you'll see that the relationship's no longer there. Again, H2 is no longer consistent. you would have to recover the session in order to get H2 consistent again, or do another flash. All right, the final one I want to talk about in 625, final new work item that we added was our dual control support for increased security. So, adding on top of the safeguarded copy that we support that we did in previous releases, we now have dual control support as well. So what is dual control? Well, when you enable dual control on a server, all actions that could have any negative impacts, starting replication, reversing replication, adding, moving copies, all that stuff, requires two users with the proper level of access to authorize the action. So what does this do? This helps prevent not only malicious acts, so if you get a malicious internal user who wants to clobber the data, or maybe they want to try to create a lot of backups and safeguarded copy to overwrite any good data. It prevents them from doing that because another user has to approve it before it actually takes effect. So the other thing this provides is a double check-in. So you might, not be a malicious case. Maybe it's I've been on calls I know where customers are about to issue a suspend or a start command, and they're saying, "Are you sure you want me to do this?" Well, this allows them to have that extra check that, hey, a second person says, yes, I do. This is what you want to do. Go for it. And so it provides that capability as well. So what do dual control commands do? What can they enable? What actions require the two users? Run commands, so any commands against sessions or snap groups. Modifying properties against a session. Adding or removing copy sets from a session. Modify, deleting, enabling scheduled tasks, any user administrations, adding or removing users, and lastly, any active and standby server setup support. So let me get into this. This gets a little more complicated. So as you can imagine, with dual control support, you actually need two users and need that ability to approve them. So let me go back to my CSM admin here. I'm going to go, how do you enable dual control? From the administrator, from the administration tab, there's an enable dual control button now. I'm going to click that button. It's going to say a dual control request has been created and added. Well, now, has dual control been enabled yet? No. We don't allow you to enable or disable dual control unless there's another user that approves it as well. Why? Because you might have that malicious user case, right? Somebody, maybe they were laid off. If you don't want them to be enabled dual control and then take off and leave and be the only one that had that access to the system, right? So a second user has to be able to approve the dual control. So I'm going to go over here. Now I'm logged into Bob. You'll see that Bob is an administrator as well. And now under my notifications tab, this is a new tab in our navigator. You can see the dual control requests. So these are any requests that have come in based off of dual control. What are the options? It tells me what the request is, and then I can approve or reject those particular requests. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and approve it. Yes. And now, going back over here, dual control is enabled. You see that disable button is on there, enables grayed out. So now any actions I do of the ones I've listed off will cause a dual control request to be created. So let's do a few. So here's my session again. I'm going to go ahead and do a flash. So as CSM admin, I'm going to say, oh, I want to flash the session. Drill in there. You'll notice that the flash did not occur. There is a new detailed status message now, though, that says it is waiting for a pending approval. So if I go back over here, you'll see, oh yeah, look, Bob sees that there is a CSM admin request to flash for that given session, for session GMP. Bob is a administrator, so let me go to my other user that I had, who is the operator user who did not have that session as one of his sessions. GMP is not one of the sessions he can manage. But you notice if I go to dual control requests here, he does not see the request. So he does not have authorization of that session, so he will not be able to approve any requests against that session. So let me go to another session just so you can see multiple of them. I'm going to go to this session and I'm going to, let's view modify the properties. Let's just change this to 500. Again, you'll see that you'll get the little warning saying that a request is pending. In this case, though, this operator did have access to that session, so he does see the MMGM request, and Bob sees it as well. So now we have 2 requests pending for Bob. They're just sitting out there waiting. Let's do another one. So let's go back to CSM admin. Oh, and you'll notice too that up above in the navigator, we actually list the number of pending dual control requests. So there's 2, so that he knows there's 2 out there that he needs to take care of. So anytime you log in, if you see a number out there, there's 2 out there that either you requested. So if I go here to myself, you could see that I requested those. I can't approve and reject my own requests, but I can cancel them. But it does show that I have 2 out there. Let's do another one. So let's add another user. I'm going to add Jack, give him a password. Let's make him a monitor. So, see, no Jack yet, nothing listed, but there we go. Another pending dual control request. So what can we do with these now? Again, we can approve or reject them. So let's try a little bit of both. So for this user actor, I'm going to say, hey, wait, Jack shouldn't have authorization to this. I am going to go ahead and reject it. It actually lets me put in a reason for the rejection. If it's optional, if you so wanted, let's say Jack does not require access. Reject. Now that one gets, you'll see, no longer shows up. Jack still doesn't show up as a user that was created. It's basically gone. You'd have to enter the request again if you wanted Jack to be added. Let's do the Flash one. This time I'm going to approve it. You'll see that the same warning prompt that came up when CSM admin initially did the Flash popped up as well here. Tells you, are you sure you want to do this? I can say yes or no. So as Bob, I'm going to say yes. I'll let CSM admin flash that session. Now if I go back here, you'll see that the GMP session is flashing. The command was finally issued and sent off. And then lastly, we'll see the properties on this one. I'm going to reject that one as well, but I'm not going to put a comment, and there it's rejected. All right, so those are a few examples of dual control. You can read our documentation on the rest, but hopefully that gives you an idea of how it's set up, how it's managed and used. It's very important to ensure you have 2 administrators constantly that have access to CSM if you enable dual control, right? So obviously you need a second administrator to approve turning on dual control, but you don't want one of those administrators to leave the company and go somewhere else and then be stuck with a single user administrator, because then you'll pretty much be locked out. You won't be able to disable dual control again because you would require a second user to even add another admin to it. So if you enable dual control, just make sure you have it's set to have at least 2 administrators, administrator or a user administrator. That's one of the new roles we added recently, and you should be set to go. Okay, with that, I'm concluding my video. Hopefully you got a good feel of what's new in 625. You'll see that we're constantly adding new stuff, including a lot of feedback. So I appreciate all your support. Any comments or questions, please feel free to include them in on the end of this YouTube video, or open up any RFEs via the link we have on this channel. Thank you very much.